Yes, people. It's Monday night. It's 10 o'clock. That means it's grounded football, Liverpool grounded football. Welcome to my panel, as ever, an ever present every week. Rak Singh, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, Steve. Not too bad, mate. Looking forward to going through this one because yeah, it was a bit different, but yeah, good to see Tom here as well. It's always good to see him on the channel. So big up, Tom.
And not before time. We're joined by Tom Little, who Rak and I have spent some time with on other pods. Good young Liverpool podcaster with an old head on young shoulders, shall we say? And in absence, where Doug is probably at this moment carrying the sofa down the stairs on his own because he's moving house and he's not available. So,
Pivot. Anyone a Friends reference? Anyone if anyone knows, but yeah.
he has my sympathy, mate. I've moved more times than I care to remember, and it's not fun. So, big up, Doug. Hope everything goes okay for you. Hey, look, he's in the comments. His ears must be burning. So we'll get into this, guys. And obviously, we didn't record last Monday night because of personnel issues and what have you. So it's been 2 weeks. I want to start with the Champions League fixture against Porto, and I'll come to you, Tom, because I've been on a couple of pods with Rack over the weekend. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, and I'll dig a bit deeper. Summarise Porto for me, buddy.
Porto was a good one, really. That's the Liverpool I know. That when we play like that, when we decide, you know what, when we have the confidence, when we don't panic and show teams the respect that they want to earn, when we just play like we did against Porto, we're the best team in the world. Like there's no one that can beat us. We were bringing in reserve players in a sense. Gomez was getting a run out at right back. Curtis Jones ran the show. Ox got a game and looked okay. You know, we just looked so good. And even in a way where we weren't scoring brilliant goals, you know, the first two were scrappy. You've got to be there to score them. And it's what killed the game off. But one just after the momentum and one right before half time, and they were done. And you still got to give credit for us going out there and finishing the job. It was a great performance.
Absolutely. Rack, their keeper, had a bit of a mad one, didn't he? That'd be a night to forget for him, won't it? So, mate, try and summarise what on earth happened with it, because they've had some decent keepers in years gone by, mate. And he's wearing the number 99. He's trying to mirror Victor Bailly, whatever his name was, the legendary
Yeah,
Portuguese keeper. What on earth's gone on there with that goalkeeper?
yeah. You know what's funny is it seems like I can't remember who said it, but someone said that all the goals we scored against Porto the other night sound or seemed like we'd scored them before because I don't know if it was him. I can't remember if it was him or it was another goalkeeper. But in recent seasons, like we've scored that a similar goal to that first one where the ball's kind of he shot at the goalkeeper. He's kind of smothered it, tipped it, pushed it to the side, and either someone's come in or it's dribbled through him. Like I'm sure Mane scored that goal before. I don't know. It all seems very reminiscent of games gone past. I mean, he didn't cover himself with glory, did he? He was. I don't want to say an embarrassment, but I mean, if you know that if one of the big clubs in England had a goalkeeper perform like that, the fans wouldn't let him live it down. So we can see it from afar and I don't know, maybe not be as judgmental, but in Portugal, I'm pretty sure they must be close to crucifying him, proverbially speaking.
I was sitting there laughing at the things he was doing, and I actually felt sorry for him. And you shouldn't feel sorry for your opposition, but it was so bad. It was so bad. I felt really sorry for him. We've just spoken about this, and Tom did. And here's a stat from the Dugout Football Channel. We've played Porto 9 times, 6 wins, 3 draws, an aggregate of 23-3. I think it's 14-2 at the Dragao too. We just seem to be perfectly set up to play against Porto, don't we, Tom?
42, bloody hell.
It's ridiculous. They must hate us. They must hate us. You see them teams, them Bowie teams. They must sit there every year, hold like shrines and prayer circles. Anyone but Liverpool. Anyone but Liverpool. Because it's pathetic. I mean, what was he doing for that fourth goal? The defender's got it. He's got it covered. He goes to he sees the keeper coming out. He goes to head it to him, and the keeper's already past him. It's just, Oh, I don't know what he's doing.
It's mental, isn't it? It's mental, isn't it? Big up, Brian. Big up, Ryan, mate. Thanks for joining us again. And big up, Rams, who has been on here a couple of
Hey.
times, sort of waving the Patrick Schick flag. And obviously, he's doing well with Bayer. And if Haaland is unattainable at 900 grand a week, which is rumoured to be what he wants.
It's Sabitzer. Sabitzer's Rams
Yeah,
guy.
but he's gone to Bayern, hasn't he, mate? So he went to Bayern for silly money at the end of the day. 15 million was a steal. But Haaland wants 900 grand a week, mate. So it's like, that's not happening at Liverpool, is it? Let's be honest. If we've got 900 grand a week, and we'll touch on this later, there's only one man who's getting that. And he's already with us, isn't he? Yeah, so here we go. People are hyping up Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Berger. Thanks, Ryan. Quality that, mate. As an absolute shambles yesterday and just scored a lucky goal. Overrated ball. I can't stand him. People are telling me he scored a great goal. And yeah, and basically it was a deflection and it could have gone anywhere. It
It's
could have
Joe
gone out the
Mattip's
ground.
goal.
It is, yeah. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah, I've had a bit of a trim, mate. So thanks for spotting that, Ryan. You're the man with the trims, mate. Coming up with your skin fades and your fancy beard and all that stuff, mate. So, sooner or later, before you know, we are going to need a guard to get us out of Portugal. Yeah, we're going to offend some serious people in Portugal the way things are going, aren't we? The group itself was made interesting by Suarez's 90th or 95th minute penalty, which gave Atletico Madrid the win. So obviously we're not 5 points clear or 4 points clear anymore. It's a lot less than that. We've got a double header coming up against Atletico Madrid. Rack, how many points realistically can we get from a double header against Atletico?
I mean, anything more than 3 is good. I think if we can get 4 points, it basically means that we're going to win the group, because I think that one more win and we do win the group, and we've got to play Porto at home, and we played them away and we know what's happened.
You had no chance answering that with the facts hard on screen, did you?
So yeah, look, I think we can. I mean, we could win both of them, but let's just say I don't know which one's first. Is the Anfield game first?
No,
I think
we're
it's the
away
away
first.
one.
The away one's first. Yeah, I mean, I'd say 4 points. I think anything less will be a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, Ryan's on form tonight, guys. We're going to struggle to get through this with stupid comments like this, aren't we? Kevin to Big Mac. That's quality there. Yeah, as Ryan says, it's Atletico away first. Tom, your thoughts on that? Are you confident we get 3, 4, or even 6 points out of those fixtures?
I'd go 4. I think 4 is what I'd hedge my bets on. I think at home we should do them. You know, we've got to get revenge for what they done in the 3-2. We've got to get revenge for what Adrian done in the 3-2. Yeah. So we've got a point to prove. I think we hold out for a draw over in Spain. I just think with the run that we've got, we played Watford. I think that's their first game under a new manager. So we got to contend with the new manager bounce, which is a horrific thing in football. I hate it. I hate the new manager bounce because it makes crap managers look good for one day. Claudio Ranieri should not be getting another job, but that's another thing. Then we've got Atletico away, which is always a tough game. And then United, I could see us resting a couple of players ahead of that United game. Because it's a massive game for the title, for rivalry. So that's the only potential slip up. I just see Anfield as a demolition. I just see us wiping the floor with them at Anfield, because we've got a point to prove.
In the spirit of podcasting, I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I'm just going to take you back a couple of minutes to what you said at the start of that piece. You said what Adrian did at Anfield, right? So here's my view on that. His positioning was diabolical. The following morning in training, that's not what the coaching staff are looking at. They're looking at who gave the ball away, who allowed the runner off them. There's 3 ways you can stop that happening before Adrian becomes a part of that goal. So I think, yes, his positioning was terrible and he didn't help. We've seen a similar positioning from Dean Henderson against Liverpool, so goalkeepers do it. They take up some mad positioning. But as a coaching staff, and I've a little bit of experience in semi-pro football in doing this, You got to cut out the trouble at the source. So at some point, we gave the ball away cheaply. At another point, a guy was able to get a pass off without a press. And how on earth does a guy get clean through and be one-on-one with your goalkeeper? So I take on board completely what you're saying, and this is totally in the spirit it's intended to be. But we need to stop digging Adrian out for 2 or 3 other mistakes elsewhere on the pitch, because when you sit and watch the video the next day in training, that's what Klopp's looking at. It's this thing about Trent, because I have a weekly Trent rant, Rack will tell you. People need to stop saying Trent can't defend. Actually, he can. But you made a really good point to me, Tom, when we swapped a few DMs a few weeks ago. You look at it and you say, you can't be a world-class attacker and you can't be a creativity man and you can't be a world-class right back at the same time. And these are your words, Tom, not mine. I completely agree. So people need to stop assessing Trent Alexander alongside Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because they're not the same. And Ryan's just said, Trent can't defend, Steve. Trent doesn't get pulled in the office and spoken to about his defending. Ryan Trent gets pulled in the office and spoken to about rivaling Kevin De Bruyne for creativity, and he's doing that at the moment. So as a Liverpool fan, mate, you go to the game, you should see what he's doing. That's why we Tom and I discussed Henderson before we came on, and we'll talk a bit more about Henderson's form. That's what Henderson's in the team to do, but we'll cover that in a minute. But go back to that thing, and Ramsey said, guess who gave the ball away? Adrian. Yeah, it was a poor goal kick, but there's other players on the pitch. That ball travelled 40, 50 yards unchallenged, and he's clean through on the goalkeeper. So lots of different things to look at.
I think it was just a bit of shock, because when James Milner completely free at left back and he just slices it to their player, I think Van Dijk was just a bit... It should have been stopped, but I think everyone's a bit like, well, how have you managed that? How have you possibly managed to do that?
Just want to... Can I just say something? Hey, what's up, Hassan? Can I just say something about Trent? Because I mean, obviously this ground has been trodden on to the umpteenth degree, but defending is so much more than just about one-on-one defending. Like, this is why defensive stats are fucking shit. Sorry for swearing, but like anyone who talks about,
mate, you speak with your chest. Don't worry.
Anyone who talks about clearances, like, oh, fucking hell, clearance. The ball's on the edge of the 6-yard box. You boot it away. Like, how is that, realistically speaking, a defensive skill? It's all just a bit stupid, to be honest. Defending is much more about the team structure, and if you can obviously stop the ball even getting to your defense, midfield does its job. In certain instances, then that's much more important. And ultimately, in any attacking team, you've got any of the top attacking teams, you have the ball more than your opposition. So to maximize your output, you have to maximize your opportunities to score when you have the ball. You're not going to maximize your opportunity to score when you don't have the ball, because you haven't got the bloody ball. So ultimately, attacking is a much more of a priority than defending when you're the primary creator in an attacking team. So people trot out this thing. Oh, defenders are supposed to defend first. Not if that's not your primary role. If your primary role is to create an attack, then why defending first shouldn't be your first and foremost thing. But anyway, sorry,
I mean,
does my head sometimes.
On that thing there about the interceptions, I think the year we won the Champions League, Trent led the entire competition in interceptions for any player, because he one-on-one, yes, he might have some issues, but every player has issues one-on-one, because you come up against brilliant players. But people seem to forget when he went up against the most informed Leroy Sané, who is the only player I've ever been scared of in the past 6-7 years coming up against. And in 2 massive Champions League games, held him to nothing. And then Champions League final, 18-19, however old he was, made Cristiano Ronaldo switch wings because he weren't getting any joy out of Trent. He weren't getting a bite, he weren't getting any space. The thing with Trent is, when people want him to compete with De Bruyne on an attacking front and Wan-Bissaka on defensive front, it's physically impossible to do that because you can't be up the pitch and back the pitch. You have to be Usain Bolt to cover that distance, that in that amount of time. We take the risk and have Jordan Henderson or have James Milner cover at right back because he's the best creative player in the league. And as a right, people just, they want him to defend as good as he can attack. Again, that's impossible. If he could defend as good as he could attack, he wouldn't be playing right back, he'd be playing midfield because
Exactly
he'd be the
right.
best player in the world.
Exactly right. Do you know what? This is the thing. You see, the way I look at it, right, is if he was having defensive nightmares, he wouldn't be in the side because Klopp's like that. But when they sit down at the start of the season and they say to Mohamed Salah, right, I want 35 goals from you this season. You've done it before. You're well capable of it. Sadio, you had a bit of a shocker last season. I want 20 goals from you. They give these players these targets. They're not saying to Trent, I'm not having you costing us goals. I'm not having you doing this. What they're saying to Trent is, we want you to go and create the chances for those guys. He is our risk taker. He is the guy in the team that is allowed to take risks. And if we still had Gini Wijnaldum, Robbo would be doing it down the other side. That imbalance in the midfield with the lack of Wijnaldum is massive at the moment, and it's affecting Robbo's game. And everyone's saying, Tsimikas is this, Tsimikas is that. Tsimikas is brilliant. He's come inside and done really, really well. But Robbo's affected by the imbalance. And we spoke again, Tom, we spoke about this a little bit before we came online. And we looked at it and said, Curtis Jones watched most of the game from a Liverpool player's perspective on Sunday, didn't have a great game. And we also said he will learn more from, and we'll talk about this now while we're on the subject, we also said he will learn more from the City game than he will from the Porto game. So just expand on that, Tom. Talk to me about that little bit of that conversation we had and your thoughts on it, please.
It's Porto was the perfect performance. It was 3 assists. Everyone was raving it. He had 5 assists in 3 games. He was on top of the world, and City was a sort of crashing back down to earth moment. But it's what he needed, and I feel a bit sorry for him because I felt he was the one who had to sit back and cover when I don't think that's his strength. I personally see Jones developing into a Coutinho type player. I think he'll develop into a left winger, left attacking midfielder sort of role. I just think that's what Klopp sees him as. I think he holds a similar skill set, very, very far back from what we saw of Coutinho in certain aspects. But I do think he has that potential. I just think yesterday he let the game pass him by, and I think when he saw Henderson bombing on, he went, let me stay back. When in reality, we needed that the other side because Robertson can handle himself. Milner was really, really struggling. And like we were saying before we came on, that's where you need your experienced captain to go, right, I'm going to go against instructions here because I can see something's not right. And I need to use my game sense to correct it. Let Curtis Jones go up and create because he can create. And Robertson's got that side covered. I need to help out my 36-year-old central midfielder who's covering the right back against one of the brightest prospects in the league.
100%. Question for you before we come to Rack and get his thoughts on that. Would you have been tempted to switch Robertson to right back and play Tsimikas at left back? Because we know Trent and Robbo swap anyway, so it's not completely alien to him, is it? And let's put it this way: Robbo is a much underrated defender. He's really better than a lot of people give him credit for. Would there have been some sense in trying that?
On paper, it sounds brilliant. In reality, I think Robertson would have been a bit too inverted. I think naturally, because he's a left footer on the right, you have to come in to play your passes, to play your switches. So I think a couple of times he might be caught out in that way, but he'd recover defensively. And I think on an attacking front, if you're trying, Milner, all of his crosses were quite poor. At least he's right foot, at least he can earn throw-ins that side, corners that side. If it's Robertson, he's got to cut back on himself and have a couple of seconds where a defender can nip in and catch him while he's setting himself up again. I think if we just held the lead for a couple of minutes longer, the 1-0 or the 2-1, and we went, right, Tsimikas on, Robertson, go watch Foden, I think we win the game because then Robertson doesn't have to worry about attacking. I mean, Mo Salah was covering all the creativity yesterday, so it was just It would have just been cover him, make sure he's not doing any more damage than what he's done already. But Klopp went with Gomez, and we got caught out again. But I can see why you wouldn't go for it, but I can see why people would argue you should.
Rack, Gomez came on. Now we're having a spot on Joe Gomez here. He's obviously come back from a really, really serious injury. 10 years ago, he doesn't come back from that injury. Such as medical science today, it's the worst thing you can possibly do to your leg, what he did, aside from breaking his thigh bone, which is pretty horrendous. But it is a serious, serious injury. How does he look to you when he's come back from injury?
To be fair, I haven't seen the game back yesterday, and I haven't really watched him that closely. To be fair, so he didn't stick out like a sore thumb. I expect him to be a little bit rusty, but I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me if he did put a foot wrong, but because I wasn't paying as much attention to honestly yesterday. I was so engrossed in the game that if you ask me to make any kind of tactical analysis, I'm probably going to be a little bit wanting in that sense. But yeah, I saw him play in the game where he played centre back with what's his face with Matip, and he looked decent enough. He wasn't really stretched in that game, so I won't jump to conclusions. But if anything, he hasn't. I don't think he's been left wanting too badly. Otherwise, I think he would have stuck out like a sore thumb, and then I would have noticed. But yeah, again, maybe you can better inform me, Steve.
I see if Tom agrees when he comes back on. If he's listening, hopefully he is. I kind of think he could have done better for the second goal because they were targeting our right-hand side with their left-hand side all the time when they were on. When Sterling came on, switched it round with Foden and Sterling quite a bit. I thought Tom made a comment earlier that he's not a fullback, and it's hard to learn to be a fullback. The touchline is your friend when you're a fullback, and you need to use it well. You need to use it properly, and he didn't. He kept coming across, trying to play on the inside. He was almost at times in the position of a right centre back, and then the ball would be switched, and he'd turn around and think, "That's where I should be." So I think positionally, on the right back position, I don't think he covered himself in glory. I think this is the point I was making earlier and in another pod. I think this really magnifies just how well Virgil van Dijk has returned, because they both had season-long injuries. And apart from the odd little slip when players get in his way, and the one that Tom mentioned after 10 months in the pre-season friendly, he's been pretty seamless. He's come back in, doesn't look like he's been away. That's a big up to Virgil van Dijk's recovery powers, Virgil van Dijk's psychology, and the measure of the man for me, because I can't see the same from Gomez. So right now, I think across our back four in the centre-back positions, I think Virgil picks himself. I think Matip is playing superb this season and is the number 2. I think Canate is the number 3. And I've got to be honest with you, mate, Nat Phillips is not far away from, based on last season's performance, he's not far away from challenging Joe Gomez for a place in the squad, because I think Gomez is bereft of confidence. Do either of you disagree?
I think Gomez is a weird one because this is his 4th major injury to his knee or his leg, and it must just get so taxing and so draining. I mean, especially since he'd just come off his first full season of form of actually playing most games, and we'd won a Premier League, so his confidence couldn't have been much higher. Then we lose Van Dijk, and it's Gomez, you're the main man, and he steps in and does really well for the couple of games he is. And he goes to England duty, picks up that horrendous injury. And I think it's just one of the ones we go, again. And he just... I said it before, and I think he's a centre-back. I think as a centre-back, he's brilliant. England's best when he's on it. When he's got the confidence, when he's got the run of games, I think he's England's best centre-back. But he's not a right-back. And this just magnifies the issue at right-back as well. We cannot rely on a centre-mid and a centre-back to cover the position where normally our most creativity comes from. Because it will come back and bite us. We got away with it yesterday because Mohamed Salah produced one of the best performances of his Liverpool career. on a creativity standpoint. If we have Trent, I think we win that game on a creativity standpoint. Yesterday, when it was getting out to James Milner, it was a man who was a bit behind the pace, always stretching for something, always nearly but not quite with the crosses, with the
That's how he
keeping
got
the ball.
that yellow card, wasn't it? The first yellow card against Foden was he stepped in towards the ball, and Foden had already kind of just pinged,
So he
not
has to
pinged,
take him
like just
down.
stepped it down the line. So he has to take him down because otherwise, we're in all kinds of trouble. But
that we got away with one, didn't we? Because that's a second yellow card all day long, isn't it? The one where he takes out Silva waist high. I can't make a case for him not getting a yellow card there. Rack, what's your thoughts? And I'll come to you in a sec, Tom. Were you looking at that thinking he's in trouble here? I was waiting for a VAR check, to be honest with you. And I was expecting him to go. Rack.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't think the VAR. I don't think VAR can adjudicate on yellow cards, so that's the problem. Even though it's a second yellow for a red, because it's a yellow, I don't think VAR is allowed to thingy. I heard some people. Well, I heard some people say some people were saying that he avoided it because Henderson kind of pushed him into Milner. I don't know if that was true. I mean, I didn't see that. Maybe there could be an
That
element of
makes me
truth.
laugh, right? Because on the basis of that,
Yeah,
mate, what we should do is we should give Henderson a baseball bat, right? And when Bernardo
yeah,
Silva's coming down, just get Henderson to push him, smack him around the back of the head with it, and say, "But ref, he pushed him into me." I'm not buying that, mate. I'm not having that.
yeah. I mean, look. Either way, it looked like it was a second yellow all day, and we did get away with one. Yeah, absolutely.
And we scored not long after that as well, didn't we? And Guardiola's dancing on the touchline, taking his coat off to show us his TK Maxx Manchester City T-shirt, mate.
Oh,
His
that is the
jumper.
worst thing I've ever seen. Why is the logo dripping?
I don't know, mate. I don't know, because they're supposed to be dripping, aren't they? That's what it is, mate. Yeah. So Guardiola's going apoplectic on the line. Do you know what? He had a case to be unhappy, to be fair. If it was the other way around, and I've been on a pod with someone who spends time in and around the club, and they've said Liverpool's bench are awful to be around during the game. They're very vocal, but we wind people up. The Lampard thing was as a result of the things that were being said by our bench, by all accounts. So I'm not surprised Guardiola lost his shit and jumped up down on the line. If it'd been the other way around, we would all feel the same, wouldn't we? We would though, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I mean, look. If it was a yellow card. Yeah. If it meant a sending off for the opposition, we would have been baying for it just equally as bad. So yeah, he's only human.
So I put something interesting on screen. It's a little bit of a diversion from what we're talking about, but it is interesting. So a couple of shouts of players we can pick up for a free. Marzal from Ajax, Kessie from Milan, Brozovic from Inter, Belotti from Torino, and Zakaria from Gladbach. Any of them take your fancy, Tom?
Kessie, I'd love Kessie. Oh, he would be the perfect mix of Henderson and Fabinho, and he can play both positions. Like that's another one of my issues with the squad at the minute. Our entire defensive midfield depth, you could argue, plays in our best midfield at the minute. If you want to put Henderson in it, because our three defensive midfielders are Thiago, Fabinho, Henderson. They're the only three that can play there. And if Thiago was fit, I think he plays ahead of Jones because Klopp's not dropping. So the lack of defensive midfield depth is just so poignant, but we get away with it because certain players maybe used to be, and some still are, so robust in that, who can cover in that role. I mean, Fabinho's only had one major injury, it was last year. So we got away with that. I'd love Kessie. And I think Mazraoui, he's a right back, which we do need, but I think this is where we need to go and pick up a young lad. It's crazy I'm even saying that a 23-year-old should be mentoring, but you'd be learning off the best in the game at 23. You'd be growing with him. That's why we should be looking at a proper young right back, because regardless of if he plays poorly, it will still be pinned on Trent, because that's just what happens.
Yeah.
So get a young lad to develop under Trent. We're sound at right back.
100%. Rack,
I don't know if
any
we
of those
do a few
names?
transfers though. Sorry.
Any of those names are familiar for you, Rack, that you think you like? And I'm going to give you one in a minute because I think there's a guy in there that'll be a banger for Liverpool. Have you seen anyone in there that you like?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Tom, Kessie's the guy that stands out for me. He didn't have the best start when he joined Milan, but he's progressively got more and more important from the last couple of seasons. Really come on. Still relatively young. I think he'll. Apparently, he really wants to stay at Milan, or at least that's the what he's saying. But he would say that if you've still got a season left in your contract and you've got to play against, you got to play with the Milan fans because they're not going to want to see him go. And it seems the fact that he hasn't signed his contract yet does make me question whether he'll stay. And I think if we could pick him up, he would certainly be an asset. If we look at, I don't think he's necessarily similar to Keita, but I think he could do a job in our midfield and play to a high level. So he'd probably be the one that I'd look at. Some of the other guys, I think the guy from Ajax, I'm not as familiar with. So yeah, it's difficult to say on the others.
I think Kessie would be brilliant in the Wijnaldum role because he's physically very strong and he's got defensive discipline. And I think if we had Wijnaldum playing yesterday, we win that game. Simple as that. Simple as that, because we wouldn't have surrendered the midfield to City in the way we did. Looking at this, I'd be all over Belotti from Torino. He is an English centre forward playing in Italy. He's big, he's strong, he's robust. He presses really, really well. Physically very, very strong. And you look at his goals record, mate. He would be an upgrade on Origi. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to get in your side every week, but he'd be an upgrade on Origi. And the guy is I don't know if you watched him. I always look forward to him coming on in the Euros. He always came on for like the last 15, 20 minutes, and he ran his blood to water. He worked really, really hard for the cause. I think that would be a great one.
Was he the one who made
Also,
that tackle against Spain in like the 119th minute to stop a counter attack? Like
yeah,
he's
he's
ran
insane,
from his
mate.
own box
He,
to cover
he
it.
looks like a typical English centre forward. He's big lad, big set of shoulders on him. He's quick. He knows where the back of the net is, and he works really hard right across the line to close people down. For me, he's a Klopp player. Rams has followed it up by saying that Goretzka's available on a free. Goretzka's going to end up going for, if he does leave Bayern Munich, which I don't think he will. He's going to be 300 or 400, 500 grand a week. Someone like Barcelona will take him if they ever find any money. Once all the collection boxes are in, they'll count them up, mate, and they'll have a go at that.
Once they've paid the rest of the Coutinho money that we're still getting.
Well, they're not paying it to us, are they? They're paying it to a factor. So yeah, an invoicing factor company. So, someone says he's now agreed to sign a contract. So Goretzka was never
That's what I
leaving
thought. Yeah.
Bayern for me, mate. He's too good. How that guy's developed as a physical specimen. He went from being like a wiry centre midfielder to a powerhouse, didn't he? You seen the guns on the lad? You wouldn't want to run into him in a dark night in an alleyway, would you? But he's a quality player. But I would take Kessie and I would take Belotti, and I'll take your judgment on the Ajax lad, Tom. We do need cover at right back. So Rams, I really enjoyed responding to that, mate. Thanks for sending that in. It was cool. I like things like that. We get opportunities to look at stuff. Let me take that off. So coming to the game, we wouldn't be talking about the game if we didn't talk about the performance of a certain Egyptian king, Mo Salah. Rack, I said that and your face lit up, mate. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to speak about him. And Tom's got a big cheesy grin too. So I'll hand this over to you guys to wax lyrical about our Egyptian prince, mate. Talk to me about Mo Salah.
I mean, he was magic, man. Like he's been the form he's exhibited this season has been brilliant. And I even think compared to that world class level yesterday, he was just on a different planet in that, especially in that second half. First half, it was a little bit was tricky because City dominated the ball in the first half, and we didn't really get that much opportunity. But as soon as he started getting on the ball, like some of the things he was doing was just out of this world. Like there was for the second goal, right? My favourite bit of the second goal. The finish was great, but is the first part where he drags it, pulls it back with one foot, and while he's in mid-air, taps it forward with his right foot. Like that is just genius. And he's left two City players, Bernardo Silva and Foden, I think it was, left them for dust. And the amount of skill, like anyone who's played football, like to do that at such a high level in that environment with that speed, and it was just different class. Like when Salah first joined in his first season with us, he went on to a level that I haven't seen since Luis Suarez in terms of almost everything he seemed to touch ended up in a goal. And I just hope, I really hope we can continue doing this for the rest of the season, because if he can stay on that level and we can avoid injuries, I think we're talking a 30 goal Premier League season from him. And then maybe we'll come back to it, but I'd just like to talk about Mane afterwards. So, but yeah, unbelievable from Mo.
Bookmark that Mane thing and don't let me forget, because I can see Tom is itching to talk about Salah. So, mate, the floor's yours.
Where do you begin with Mohamed Salah? The best player in the league, the best player in the world, the greatest Premier League winger of all time. If he isn't that already, he's certainly not far off it. What we're seeing from Mohamed Salah now is levels that no player should be. It's levels that Messi and Ronaldo will be proud of at the start of the season. 9 games, 9 goals, 3 assists in the toughest league in the world. The only team he didn't score against was Burnley because it got ruled offside by that much. If he scores against them, he's scored in every game this season. This is goal scoring levels we've never seen from a player before. Yesterday was one where it was we were struggling. We had nothing really going forward. Jota was uncharacteristically poor. He just really couldn't get going against Diaz, against Laporte. And then Mo Salah in that second half goes, right, I'm running this now. Get it to me. And he gets the ball twice. He gets the ball 3 times in decent positions. First time is a delicious ball to Mane after that audacious flick over Rodri. And then the second, it's Messi-esque, it's Maradona-esque, it's Salah-esque. It's just what he does. It is what Mohamed Salah does. And it's even better when you see all the Chelsea fans, all the rival fans going, oh, he's not better than Hazard, he's not better than Neymar, he can't dribble. Hazard's creme de la creme is against Alberto Moreno. Mo Salah's is against João Cancelo when I met at Laporte at the same ground on his weaker foot. It was just perfect. And then his third one, that delicious free kick over the top, which Ederson misjudges, and I thought on my life was 3-2. I've never been so gutted, but he just ran the show. And the only reason that Phil Foden has got a joint man of the match is because he's English. Because no one on that pitch yesterday compared to Mo Salah.
Totally agree. Just before we carry on, big up to the Red Sea podcast who joined us. Thanks for joining in, lads. And big up to Euro Expert there who's telling us Salah's second goal was incredible. Absolutely it was, my friend. Absolutely it was. I remember last week I said Neymar can do things with the ball, Salah can't. That goal almost single-handedly proved me wrong. There's an admittance if I ever saw one, and big up to you for saying that, mate. I think the situation with Salah at the moment is there's now a debate whether he's Liverpool's greatest Premier League player. That will resonate with some people. It will frustrate others because of what Steven Gerrard did. I don't think you can say who's the greatest Liverpool Premier League player. What you can say, and if Ryan's on, he's going to dig me out for this, is that Salah is arguably Liverpool's greatest forward in the Premier League era. In terms of his numbers, they are ridiculous. And I know Suarez in 13-14 was like the best player in Europe, and that's the reason why he got his move to Barcelona. This is Salah's 5th season. It will be his 5th season by the time it ends, and he will be a feature. He will be a constant threat, a menace, a goal scorer, a creator, a creative influence in Liverpool Football Club for 5 years. People were calling him a one-season wonder. The guy's level of consistency, his availability. Look at the physique of the man. He's a machine. Looks like that one where he took his shirt off. Looks like, you know, the film Ted. Looks like Ted's giving him a cuddle from behind with them claws around there, doesn't it? Just an incredible footballer. And do you know what? That thing you said, Rack, where he dragged the ball back onto his foot and moved it again. I created a GIF of Cancelo diving in and being made to look.
Steve?
Oh,
Steve, we lost you, mate. Oh, Steve's frozen. Tom, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right,
He was
fine.
getting really into it then as well.
Yeah.
Am I back? Am I back?
Yeah,
Can you
we
see
can
me?
hear you. We can hear you. Yeah, you're frozen.
Cancelo weren't having the slammed. He's cut his Wi-Fi out.
Cancelo, he doubles as a broadband installation guy from Sky or whatever.
I think on that Salah thing though, the best thing I heard about it this week was Luis Suarez is a footballing great who played for
Hmm.
Liverpool. Mohamed Salah will be a footballing great and a Liverpool great. That's the difference. He's done it for longer.
Sure.
He's done it at such a high level consistently, and he's got the trophies. And the thing is mental as well because I see another 5 years at this level for him with how he looks after himself.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
it's a difference. I always think there's a difference between greatest and best because best, I think there's, you don't necessarily have to talk about emotion. You don't have to talk about how players made you feel. It's more or less all about performance, and obviously performance can be displayed in stats, but it can be displayed in many other ways. But when you're talking about greatness, it's all about all the other stuff. At the end of the day, football, it's called a beautiful game. It's called a beautiful game because emotion is part of it, and that's why for me Stevie will. You should never say that Stevie will always be the greatest because there's always got to be room for somebody to come and surpass him, whether it be a Scouser or a non-Scouser. But in terms of being the best, I think Salah is pushing Stevie close. But for me, I'd always go with Stevie unless something changes.
Guys, am I back in your stream now?
Yes, you are.
Right, so we'll pick up where I left off, right? You should be able to segregate them. You should be able to say best attacker, best midfielder, and best defender. And I'll evidence that. I've seen all of Liverpool's top defenders. I've seen Alan Hansen, I've seen Mark Lawrenson, I've seen Sammy Hippi, who gets rightly credited by lots of people. Jamie Carragher at his day. But Virgil van Dijk is better than all of those guys, and that don't say he's better than Alan Hansen lightly, but he is. Steven Gerrard is the best midfielder that Liverpool have ever had, and the only guy who comes close to him was Graham Souness when he played for Liverpool. And then up front, Kenny Dalglish is the top man. But if Salah does this for another 2 or 3 years, if he signs a new contract, he's in that conversation, guys. He really is, because of this longevity thing that everyone throws out there. If you're good enough, you're good enough, and you can do it for 1 season or 6 seasons. It doesn't matter. That's the way I see it. But Salah's absolutely ridiculous. The form he's in at the moment is you got Manchester United fans taking to Twitter saying, "Wow, give that guy some respect. He doesn't get the respect he deserves, and he doesn't get the respect he deserves." But his numbers are total madness. He's not even. What would we be like now if he was clinical? What would we be sitting here thinking if he was absolutely clinical? Because we know he misses chances. We know he scores things that, the one against Brentford where he tried to chip the keeper. He's only got a side foot that in the bottom left-hand corner and he scores. But he's trying to be clever because he's so confident. If he was clinical and scored all the chances he'd missed, he'd be giving us 55, 60 goals a season, and we would be winning everything.
100%. That's what I've always said about him and Mane. They're great goal scorers, but they can't finish. There's a difference between being a good finisher and being a great finisher, because the great finishers score more than they miss. Salah and Mane miss more than they score, but they create so much on their own that it sort of negates it. I think if we had a great finisher alongside them two, we'd break all sorts of goal scoring records, because Salah puts up 30 goals a season while missing 30 big chances. If you half the big chances missed, it's numbers that Messi and Ronaldo put up. It's ridiculous. The fact that people try and pass him off as a penalty merchant and he only picks and chooses games. He's not that great. Hazard's better. I'm not having it, because at the end of the day, we're looking at potentially a historical season. 9 games, 9 goals, from a winger, not in, oh, he's an inside forward, so it doesn't count. No, he's a winger. He goes up against the fullback, so he's a winger, and he's putting up numbers that any world-class striker would go, I'd love to have. I'd love to put up them. I'd love to be able to do that. But they can't because they're just not as good as him.
Well, I'm struggling to add to that, mate, because you're exactly right. Is this what the guy's doing at the moment is absolutely ridiculous. You know, you got the guy runs a terrace coming out every day and saying he's the greatest Liverpool player in the Premier League. He's doing that to trigger Liverpool fans. That's fine because he'll get a response and he'll get people on his show. That's what
Yeah.
it's about. And big up to him for doing it. You know, the content's really good that comes out of there. But the bottom line is you've got fans like Indiana who runs this channel. You've got Usman, you've got Bobby Nwanzi and people like that who are saying, look how good he is, and he is that good. He's absolutely ridiculous. Long may it continue. The guy's as fit as a flea. Never misses games, does he? And touch wood, I haven't put the kibosh on him there, but you know he is absolutely insane. And when his career's done, and we sit and have a conversation about the greatest goal scorers, not wingers or forwards, the greatest goal scorers in the Premier League, he's at the top table. He's absolutely at the top table, which I have to be honest. I think Thierry Henry's probably at the head of that top table at the moment, but there'd be no reason why you couldn't have a conversation about how far Salah pushes him. Because if we win another title, and we win a couple or two in the time that Salah's at the club, Henry's legacy is tremendous because he changed the way that players play in the Premier League, wide players, forward players play, and that we'll always remember him for that. Salah's numbers are comparable to anybody's. The only people they're not comparable
Yeah.
to are Ronaldo and Messi because they are clinical.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at the people who've played with. This is back to the Trent thing. Dani Alves has got like 115 assists in his career. Why has he got that? Because he passed the ball to Messi on the halfway line and then he beat 7 men and KO'd it in the top corner. Guess who gets the assist for that? But that's the truth of it. You can give players like that the ball and they go and do crazy things. When Jones gave Salah the ball, he probably didn't think he was going to do what he did. Because I
I
didn't.
don't think anyone thought he was going to do what he did.
No. There's assists, and there's assists, right? And I don't think anyone in their right mind would call what Mo did there. Anything
This is
other
an
than
interesting comment.
unimaginable.
This is an interesting comment. People say it's a system, but would another get them numbers for Liverpool? I genuinely believe our system, as rigid as it is, works behind the front three, with the exception of Bobby leading the press. So all of the work to create the space and the ingenuity for the front three is done by the 8 players behind them. I think those three have got license to call it as they see it. And I think you see that, and we'll talk about it in a minute. It's a nice little lead into Rack's wish to talk about Mane. Mane's run across Manchester City's back four for the first goal was absolutely sensational. Absolutely sensational. So I think, to be fair, the front three, with the exception of Firmino to some degree, because he leads the press, I don't think Mane and Salah have got particular instructions within the system. They've got license to do what they do, which is in Salah's case, go and create havoc and score goals. And we'll talk about Mane because there is a slight sign that Mane's form is starting to return. And at the home games this season, I think he's been pretty cool. So, Rack, here's your opportunity. You wanted to talk about Mane, and I think it's good to talk about Mane. So, tell us your thoughts, pal.
Well, look, I think Mane's form this season has been a little bit sporadic, but I think the general trend is that he's improving. And a lot of people are writing him off. Were writing him off at the start of the season. I don't think that's fair because I think even with 7 games gone and 9 games gone, I don't think there's enough proof to make a judgment either way. All what we can say is I think in general his performances have been decent and have been getting better. And if we just want to look at it in terms of raw numbers, he's got 4 goals this season in 7 games, better than a goal every other game, and more than £100 million striker Lukaku. So, like, well, let's put it in perspective a little bit. He's got to improve. I agree. More in general play than goal scoring because I think if he scores, if he keeps scoring at that rate or drops off a little bit, if he gets us 18 to 20 goals this season. I think we can't really ask for much more from him in terms of output. What I'd like to see him do is contribute more in terms of the danger he presents to opposition players when he gets the ball. Either driving at them or just from a creative point of view. Taking players away from other players, maybe holding players up and playing the ball through to Robbo to get crosses in and stuff like that. But yeah, I think some of the overreaction to him being finished, I think, has been wildly overblown and needs to just that people just need to take a step back for a little bit and see how things pan out. They could be right. I'm not saying that this could all be a flash in the pan and the rest of the season could see Mane tail off considerably, but to say that it's happened already is just jumping the gun way too quickly, and I think it's out of order.
Totally agree. Tom, thoughts on that?
Sadio Mane is a tough one, and I think I've always had this stance with Sadio Mane. He's a confidence player in a sense, and last season and at the very start of the season, less so now as he's finding a little bit of it, he just looks so out of confidence because Sadio Mane that I think is the best version of him is one that will go at a defender, stop dead, let the defender stop dead and burst past him. And he creates his own space, he creates his own opportunities by doing that. And we just saw a lot less of it. Sadio Mane's never had a brilliant first touch, a brilliant consistent first touch. He's never had a brilliant consistent close control like Salah does. Sadio Mane is a bit more bullish than Salah, but it's what we need. You need an opposite to him. He's a lot more physical in a way. He likes to challenge for a lot more aerial duels, back into defenders. And we're just starting to see him do that a little bit more. And that run yesterday, you could tell them two had been working on that because the moment Salah looked up, he was looking for Mane, and Mane executed that run to perfection. And what I'll say is Van Dijk would never be caught like that, like a certain player of the year, best centre back in the world was.
I'm not necessarily inclined to agree with that. That movement is so good. It is so good. And what Diaz is trying to do is trying to recognise where he thinks, because Salah's getting away from a pathetic challenge by Rodri, by the way. And he's looking at that thinking, right, okay, he's bearing down on me now. What do I do? So he's thinking, right, I'll hold my ground and then the keeper can deal with the positioning to my right. And at the right moments, I'll step out and go to my left and try and shut down Salah. What he wasn't expecting was for that run. It was totally flat-footed by Mane's run, totally. Feeds the ball into him, and what a great finish as well.
That's the crazy thing, though, because we tried that run a lot in the first half as well. I think it was on co-commentary. Was it Gary Neville pointed out after like the 10th minute? Sadio Mane was avoiding Kyle Walker for a reason. He was always trying to get behind Diaz. So you would have thought that maybe one of the City staff would go pull him aside and go, look, it's happened 3 or 4 times, but nothing's come of it. Just remember, just keep your eye. Maybe have Laporte talk to you about where he is. And just nothing. And it was a classic Sadio Mane goal. It was that weird finish that always seems to go in. He never seems to hit them right to me, but they always seem well hit. And the embrace them two had. I remember when Salah didn't pass the ball and it was all that, oh, they hate each other. No, they don't.
They're selfish. They're selfish guys who want to score goals, right? And I've always said this, Tom. If you're playing in my team and you're the centre forward, and you put 14 shots over the bar, and you stick the 15th one in top bins, and we win 1-0, then that's plenty good enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what you want from forward men. You need them to be selfish, and you need them to be greedy. And I've got no problem with the way either of them plays the game. They don't dislike each other. They get frustrated because they want to score goals. And you know what? If we weren't seeing that frustration, we would have a problem. So that's a rival and the Gary Neville thing. Gary Neville talks crap when it comes to Liverpool anyway, at the best of times. But he's saying there was a problem between them. He said early on in the season something isn't right with Liverpool. They just sort of like they're missing something. They're unbeaten. What more do you want?
No, we haven't won every game 5-6-0, so not good enough, are we? Unfortunately.
No. I just wish Jamie Carragher would remember who he played for sometimes and be a bit more defensive of Liverpool rather than being, since Spitgate, he's totally owned by Sky and he won't say anything, he won't show his colours. He's too impartial for me. He refers to Liverpool as Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp as the manager. I want to see him be a bit more bullish about what we're doing. Am
It's
I wrong to
us.
think like that?
He should be saying us, we.
Yeah,
He should be a Liverpool fan. I mean, when I watch Mika Richards or Roy Keane, they're impartial, but they're passionate about their club.
Yeah.
Carragher just tries to appease everyone. Be yourself, because when you were yourself, you were brilliant. It was brilliant seeing you and Gary Neville go at each other. It was brilliant watching on Monday Night Football. It's so annoying because he wants to say it, but it's like he's holding himself back. And I don't think he ever properly appreciates how good this Liverpool team was until last season when he was going, something not right, this, that, this, the other. Everyone didn't appreciate it until it was gone.
Yeah, and the thing that really drives me potty sometimes just is when we see, like, just watching football on the pitch, we see a fraction of what actually happens at the club, right? We see 90 minutes every week, whereas these guys are spending 30 hours a week together or something like that. And using that 90 minutes, we try to fill in massive gaps and try and construct a narrative in our heads, or the media tries to do it. I'm not trying to be like make up conspiracy theories or whatever, but just because Mo maybe didn't pass to Sadio one time, that means they hate each other. Like, does anyone comprehend how the stupidity of drawing that conclusion? Because he may not have passed him for a number of reasons. One of them could be that he doesn't like him, but compared to the number of other possibilities, it's frankly ludicrous. So yeah, it does my head in when people say stuff
You know,
stuff like that.
even if it was true that there was a problem between them, Teddy Sheringham and Andy Cole didn't speak to each other. They won a treble together. Do you know what I mean? So you look at that and you think, actually, it's not a big problem, even if it is like that, because people are different and personalities are different. But there isn't a problem between them. They both get frustrated when they get substituted, particularly Sadio, and I get that and understand that because even playing county and some semi-professional football, I was exactly the same. No one wants to get dragged off. No one wants that. You know, it's a face-saving exercise when that's why they look frustrated. So, and if they don't pass to each other again when the other one's open, then dig each other out. Because I tell you what these people on social media don't realise is the higher up you go in football, the more volatile changing rooms are when things aren't going well. Some of the shit that's thrown around in changing rooms and the things that are said and the way players dig each other out, if it ever came out, people would be shocked. The higher up you go, the bigger the risk, the more the reward, the more shit you get for doing things incorrectly. So when a man's click open and you take a shot from wide, you know you're not going to score, you don't pass to him, you can expect that guy and one or two others to dig you out in the changing rooms. It's fine. It's what football is. There's no problem with those two guys. There's no problem with their relationship at all. That was a genuine hug from that goal. That was like all of their, like Tom says, all the stuff they've worked on in training came off, and it came off in the biggest game in football at the moment. That's the biggest rivalry in football anywhere on the planet at the moment, in terms of what those two teams can achieve. With arguably the top two coaches in the world as well. Chelsea fans will tell you Thomas Tuchel's in that conversation as well. Yes, he's talented. He needs to win a title before you can start having conversations like that. He's done well with a very, very strong Chelsea side, giving them what they wanted to do. And he won the Champions League. Fair play to him, respect for that. But Klopp and Guardiola have been doing this for a while. So that's the biggest rivalry in English football at the moment by a distance for me. And they served up a second half of absolutely sensational football that was a wonderful advert for the English Premier League.
Yeah,
So
I just
before
want
we
to say
go,
something
go
about
on, pal, go on.
just a quick thing, just a quick thing about City. I was on the terrace the other day, and there were some pretty wild things said about City. Like, there's a lot of things that I don't like about City, but one of the things you can't knock is the way they play football. They play some amazing football. Um, I think Guardiola is an absolutely exceptional coach. The way that he plays football, I love the way Jurgen plays football, but I'd say probably Guardiola's style of football is a little bit more in tune with what I like, not by a huge amount, because I think there are huge similarities, but there are some subtle differences. and I think they deserve respect for the way they played yesterday. They played their part as did we in one of the best games we're probably going to see this season.
Absolutely. Anything to add to that, Tom?
I mean, it's why I hate playing against Manchester City, because even when they're not playing well, you just know that they can rock up and put 3 past you with no reply. They're that good. They're that well oiled. It's crazy just how good they are. I will always prefer Klopp style football because I just think it's more emotional. It's more passion driven. It's more energetic. But I can see why anyone would love to watch Guardiola's football, because it's an art. It's an art form on the football pitch. How everyone passes and moves and creates triangles and spaces. It's ridiculous. And Pep Guardiola deserves all the credit in the world. And Jurgen Klopp deserves all the credit in the world as well for figuring out how to stop that. When the only manager I've seen be able to stop that anywhere near as consistently as Jose Mourinho, who people argue is one of the best 3 managers of all time. But Jurgen Klopp seems to have a little number on him. A little number he seems to understand a little bit on him. And it's working off recently.
Yeah, we've got this powerful machine, haven't we, that steamrollers people, and it does. And I've mentioned this before, when we beat Leicester 4-1 away at their ground on Boxing Day, I think it was, when Trent scored the 4th goal, Kasper Schmeichel came out at the end of the game and said, look, don't look at us and think that we played badly. Liverpool don't allow you to play. They bully you into doing what they want to do, and it is so hard to stop. And bullying teams includes bullying Manchester City, who are arguably, technically, some of the best players the Premier League have seen. Kevin De Bruyne will be in the top table conversation when his career is done. They play with almost 3 number 10s. They recycle the ball really well, but they recycle the ball really well in the final third. So they win the ball back by numbers, not by a press, but by sheer numbers, really high up the pitch. They've got Foden, they've got £100 million Grealish, they've got Mahrez. I could go on, guys. They've got a wealth of talent in their squad, but when we get it right, they can't deal with us, because it's like Vorsprung talk technique, isn't it? It's like a ruthless German machine that steamrollers everybody, and it does. But it's such a fragile system in terms of what we saw last season with injuries. But listen, I love it. I love the intensity. I relish those games. I actually enjoy watching Liverpool, Manchester City. I despise watching Liverpool, Manchester United. I'm not a fan of Liverpool, Everton games either. But the games against Manchester City, guys, we should embrace them and enjoy them, because those are the top 2 teams going at each other, hammer and tongs, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. The second half on Sunday was, the standard of football was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So, Tom, we've talked about our expectations as a panel before, and Rax made his view on Liverpool's chances this season, known on a number of occasions. But before we close, because we're just over the hour point, we'll wrap it up. Realistically, across the competitions, and talk to me about the domestic cups as well. What do you want and what do you see?
What I want is the Premier League and the Champions League. What I see is one of the two. I think we will just throw the domestic cups. He plays the kids. He doesn't really care. He probably hates it when we go through another round, because it's just more fixtures for him to worry about. But I think if we stay fit throughout the whole season, the Premier League, if we lose a couple of players, which I expect to happen, because you can't get lucky throughout a whole season, if we lose Jota or Firmino for an extended period, or the midfield gets even weaker for a period of time, or God forbid we have another defensive couple injuries, I do think it would be the Champions League, because I do think this team still has the makings of a great knockout team. We've still got the pace in the attack, the intensity in the midfield, and it's very hard to stop creative fullbacks, especially when we overload 2v1 on their fullback.
Yeah, totally. So, Premier League, top 4 are going to stretch away from the rest. Would you agree with that?
Top 3. I think United are going to have massive issues internally. I just think you've got too many personalities in there who want the ball, want to be the main man. And I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the right man to manage that. He's too much of a people pleaser. He tries to make everyone feel happy. You need to have someone assertive going, no, this is how we do it. And I think they'll have a flurry. They'll have a really good run, and they'll fall off he'll lose his job. They'll bring someone in who doesn't live up to expectations, and then they'll sit there and go, "Where did it all go wrong?" And I think it'll be Liverpool, Chelsea, and City all the way till the end, because I just think them three teams are brilliant.
I can't decide or predict who finishes 1, 2, or 3. I tend to agree with your comments there because Liverpool and City, Liverpool on a 17-game unbeaten run in the Premier League at the moment, and you do have to include the end of last season because it's all about momentum and having that mentality, and we've got that. And at 17, we're only 2 games away from going half a season unbeaten, and we do that, and that's what we do. The City are quite capable of winning 15 on the spin, and so are we. It'll be interesting to see if Chelsea can hang on. I do still think, based on what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, I think Manchester City have really marked everybody's card this season and said, if you want to win the Premier League, you're going to have to finish above us. I said that to start the season. I don't change my mind now. Would you agree with that, Tom? Do you think City are again going to be the standard bearers and you'll need to beat them?
City, I said this in the summer, I think City are always going to be up there because it's Manchester City. They have too many great players to not be. But I think they'd struggle because if you get to them tight games, I don't see who they can go to and go, here's a half chance, score it, because we need it. The only one I can see is potentially Foden, but you're putting all that faith on a 20-year-old shoulders, which I don't think will end well.
No, that's a good shout.
The lack of a number 9, I think, not in your big games, because you're not allowed to defend, you're not allowed to just park the bus in big games, will get punished by them. But like the weird games, like if a West Ham set up against them and it just ends 1-1, because they batter them, only get one, and then West Ham pop up with a corner at the other end. That could be the unravelling of City, because they just don't have game. They have lots of great players, but they don't have a match winner in the squad. Someone who grab that half chance, that scrappy goal, who reads it before it happens and is in the right place. I just don't see that for them.
Yeah, I think if they'd got Kane in the summer, we'd all be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't we? Kane would get 50. Kane would have got 50 goals for Chelsea this year because of the chances they create. So, guys, an hour and 7 into it. Thanks very much for coming on. Tom, tell us where we can follow you and where we can find you through the week, mate.
Just there. I just go on wherever. Just talk about Liverpool. Enjoy the fact that we're the best club in the world and we're going to win the Premier League this season.
I'm loving your confidence, mate. And obviously, same as ever, Rat can be found on his socials. Both these guys can be found on the terrace from time to time. And Rack sometimes joins in on Friday Night Rivals with me, well, more often than not, on a Friday night over on Usman's channel, which is it's not a Manchester United conversation. I spent half an hour yesterday explaining to a plastic Liverpool fan that not everybody's as toxic and as violent. Usman's a really nice fella, and no problem with talking to him or Daps about football because they're decent lads. So don't be that guy. Football is something for us all to enjoy. I'm just a Liverpool fan and I like speaking to other people. So, Tom, thanks very much for coming on, mate. We will 100% have you back. As ever, insightful comment with a lot of thought given to what you said, and very grateful for having you on. Looks like Rack's ducked out because his Just Eats turned up. So that'll be that, because he was texting somebody all the way through that, mate. He's ordering his dinner money. So, guys, thanks for those of you in the chat as well with the comments, as ever, that you give us good things to talk about. You keep the energy up in the room. But thanks very much, and we'll see you next Monday night. Here he comes. He gets to say bye. Just in time to say bye, mate.
Sorry,
we've just decided whether you went to get your dinner from the Just Eat who knocked on your door, mate.
No, iPad died, so yeah, on the phone now.
So that's it. We'll wrap it up for this week. I've thanked Tom for coming on, mate. I'm sure you second that as a co-host. Good content from Tom as always. And we'll see you next week, next Monday night at 10 o'clock.